Brandon, we're going to start with Houston and Kansas City. Now, I'm just going to toss to you initially for your bet here, and we can kind of go back and forth on some of your analysis. You've got props. I've got some notes and stats. So you start first, KC Houston.
So I knew from the moment that Houston won the opening playoff game, I knew it. I knew I would have to be on Houston this week. After dumping on them all season, I knew that I'd be begging myself to try to take the Texans here. To me, this game right off the bat, this is the trend spot of the week. So I'm going to start with the trends. In the wild card round, you bet on the big home favorite. We did that last week. We got the Buffalo escalator. We got the Rams escalator. We should have had the Baltimore escalator. I don't know what happened with that. In the division round, you fade the home favorites. Home favorites division round, 34, 46, and 1 ATS, 42% covering the spread. Division round favorites that are 75% win rate or better. So that's a 13-4 record or better. 18-32 against the spread, 36% cover rates. Getting worse. The better you were in the season, the worse the trend is for you. Home 1 seed after the bye week in the division round, 15, 27, and 1 against the spread, 36% cover rate. If the underdog is a dog of 10 or less, 71% cover rate for the underdog in those. They've won 11 of the last 32 outright. That's against the 1 seed. That's the team that we knew all year long was the best team. 11 to 32 outright. I'll do the math for you. 16 is half. They shouldn't be winning like somewhat close to half of those games against the rested juggernaut 1 seed. In addition, some Chiefs-specific trends because they lost that Week 18 game, which I know they didn't try. It shouldn't matter, but here are some trends. Home division round team on a 1-game losing streak. Now, let me help you with that. You can't be on a 1-game losing streak unless you just had a bye, because you had to win last week otherwise. So the only way you can do that is if you're one of the bye teams that lost a, quote, meaningless game in Week 18. Turns out not so meaningless. Those teams are 4-16 ATS, 20% cover rate. That fits the Chiefs here. Underdogs, those 9 or less in those games, are a perfect 13-0 in that spot. 7 out of the 13 won outright. That's more than half, won outright against a team that had a week off and maybe a second week off, and maybe that's the rust factor coming in. Here's another one. Playoff teams off a 3-score loss, 17 points or more. Again, it's either got to be the opening round or it's got to be a bye week team because you had to win otherwise. The Chiefs lost by more than 17. I know, I bet on them in that game. The Chiefs here are 6-20 ATS, teams off a 3-score loss, 23% cover rate. It's a barrage of really bad trends warning you about the Chiefs here. Here's what all the trends say. Books and bettors get way too overconfident in those rested 1 seeds. We saw them dominate all year. We add in some tax on the 1 seeds. And I think it's especially bad per the trends if the team is rusty and coming off and not a great last game. So to the matchup stuff, I do think there's reason for the Chiefs to be a little bit leery about some of the matchup stuff. We talked about this with the hot read. Houston, 2 big matchup advantages that they can exploit here. Kansas City's tackles, offensive line have been a problem all year long. Houston's best thing on the team is their edge rushers. So I think that sets up well for a possible matchup where Mahomes is getting pressured all game. When the Chiefs lose or perform poorly in the playoffs, it's almost always something to do with Mahomes getting pressured all game. The other edge is Nico Collins, the only good receiver left for Houston, but Kansas City is bottom 10 against wide receiver 1 by DVOA on the season. So that's the best stuff about Houston. I think it just happens to match up well with the Chiefs in this spot. Both defenses, I think, have the advantage here. That makes 8.5 points even more valuable. I would lean under on this game, so I think it kind of tilts that direction. The Chiefs have played a top 13 defense, DVOA, 9 games this season. They scored 21 or less over half of those games. They haven't scored 31 all season. So I think the Chiefs get to like 20, 21 points. I think Houston probably only gets like 14, 17, 20 points, but you can do the math. That's enough to cover. One other little thing, the Chiefs got their rest game, right? Well, don't forget the Texans had a rest week also. They didn't really play in Week 18 either. So I think that sort of mutes the whole rest advantage. I'm not going to be playing I'm not going to be playing a Texans money line here. The trends want me to. The trends say the Texans are alive. I gave you some of the numbers for it. I think the game will be won on third downs. Advantage Mahomes, advantage Chiefs defense. I'm a little leery about some of the Houston injuries. The offensive line, Azeez Al-Shaair is not practiced this week. That makes me a little scared. Texans plus 8.5. That's the pick here. But then a couple other correlated bets, because this is what we've seen all season. What do the Chiefs do? They win close games. They're 11-0 in one score games. So give me the Texans 8.5 with the Chiefs money line together. That's plus 209. That bet is basically the Texans keep it within one score. The Chiefs win a one score game. That bet this year, when the Chiefs are at least a 7-point favorite, is 6-0. And we're getting a plus 209. And just a little narrative sprinkle. I like Chiefs to win by a field goal or less. So you basically go Houston plus 3.5, Chiefs money line, put it together, 6-1. The Chiefs did that 5 times this year, won by 3 or less, and 4 of their last 6 playoff wins have been by 3 or less. That's the Chiefs' magic. That's what they do. I think this game gets interesting. I think Houston's confident after their last game. They kept it close all the way along. I like the Texans to keep it close.
I'm coining a new bet, and I'm making a name for it, and I don't necessarily think it's going to stick, but I'm calling it the accordion. And what you're doing is, and I kind of want to do it across numbers, is I want Houston at like 6.5 and 7.5 and 4.5 as well, and put it with KC's money line. I'm calling it the accordion. It's stupid, but kind of getting both sides and taking like the dungeon or taking the basement and run on it and taking all those key numbers. I think it'll be a fun one because my gut is that KC's not going to blow them out, and even at like 17 or 20. And Casey's kind of running their gamut here. I think Houston will have an opportunity to get some touchdowns. So getting back into that game, into those zones that we would be betting, I think is a fun one. The one trend I'll give you before we move to your next one here. So the total is 41.5 at the moment in this game. And of Mahomes' 18 career playoff games, this would be his lowest total. His previous low was 43.5 against the Dolphins last year. His 69 career home starts, he's only closed below 41.5 once, and that was 40.5 in the Raiders game last year on Christmas that he lost. So interesting situation there. I'll toss to you for your prop, and then I have something to back you up there. So give us your prop, and then we can go from there.
All right, so I got props on 2 Chiefs players. So we'll start with Xavier Worthy, the rookie receiver. I want a receptions escalator on Xavier Worthy. So if you look at his splits, first 12 weeks compared to week 13 forward since then, it's very clear to me they're just using him completely differently. His target share jumped from 14% to 21%. His targets per route jumped almost 50% as well. They're changing how they're using him. His ADOT basically cut in half. It's only down to like 6 yards. So rather than go deep, you're Tyreek Hill, we're chucking it 50 yards, that's what he was. Now I think they're using him more like they used Rashee Rice way back in those first few games. They're building the thing out of Xavier Worthy. They're trusting him in these underneath routes. Let's get you the ball close and let you do your thing from there. Let's give you a punt return, basically. His catch rate has gone way up. In last 3 games, he's playing his most snaps of the season, over 80% every game. He's averaging more than 10 targets a game, 7 catches for 63 yards, 6, 7, and 8 catches in those games. So the Texans, top 10 most fantasy points to receivers, number 2 most touchdowns, plus 220 if you want the touchdown. I don't mind it. I want receptions, not yards, because you got the low ADOT. Now, you can always bust a long one, but I want the catches escalator. So over 4.5 catches is the baseline, minus 136. I think that's worth the play, given that he is averaging 7 catches a game this last stretch. And then here's the escalator. You can get this whole thing in the quick slip. Check the notes for it. It'll load all these for you. 6 catches plus 150, 7 catches plus 280, 8 catches plus 525, a little bit less all the way up there. And if you do want the yards, a little trick here, he's also running the ball more. This 3-game stretch with all the targets, he's also ran 8 times in that stretch for 50 yards. So if you can play rushing and receiving yards together, which some books will offer you, I like 75 plus rushing and receiving. That's plus 190. He's hit that 3 in a row. You get a little boost from the running game, and maybe just get a long one somewhere in there. So I think the rookie has become really the go-to guy in this offense. We'll see if it holds up. Maybe it's just my next guy, Travis Kelce, but I don't mind playing both these guys together. What do you think about Xavier Worthy?
I love Worthy, and the stat that I looked up, which is attached to him, is since week 10, the trivia was which Chief has the most first read / design targets from Mahomes. The answer is Worthy, not Kelce. So Worthy has 44, Kelce 43, Hopkins 38, and then Noah Gray at 19,
Wow.
fourth on the list. So I think Gray is really sneaky, but I think Worthy is the man. Now I think Kelce come playoff time, everyone's going to assume a boost. Everyone's going to assume they're going to look to him more and more and more in these tight knit situations. But Worthy is by far their most explosive player, and if they trail, which you and I have talked about Houston and maybe sneakily kind of liking them, to me it makes Worthy even more explosive in this game because they're going to need him to do things versus them trailing and maybe just trying to burn some clock. So I'm all about it. Talk to me about Kelce.
Yeah, I think too the trailing idea or even a close game, you get like a 2-minute drive, you get some short passes. Xavier Worthy and Kelce are going to be the short
Yeah.
pass dump off sort of guys. So I'm going to play both guys here because I think Xavier Worthy is the volume guy. I think Travis Kelce is the red zone guy. So I'm playing what I'm calling the Travis Kelce legacy escalator. Here's this guy's stats the last 4 playoffs, 13 games, which is crazy enough as it is. In 13 games, he has 113 catches, 1,271 yards, and 13 touchdowns. He's averaging a touchdown a game. He scored in 10 of the 13 games. He has at least 71 yards all 13 games in that playoff stretch. And with Mahomes, he's now played 18 playoff games. He has 18 touchdowns, at least one in 13 of those games. So I look at the stats from the season, the game by game log, throw it out because I learned the hard way last year. Throw out last year's stats too. His stats from this year are almost identical to last year. Then we got to the playoffs. They took off the kid gloves and we're like, okay, we saved you all year for this. Go do your thing. And he instantly was a different player. By the way, off 3 weeks of rest, probably doesn't hurt either. So I'm on the touchdowns. You can get the touchdown for Travis Kelce plus 160. That is insulting to what he has done in his playoff legacy. Playoff history for him should make that more like minus 250. So I know it's somewhere in between because he is getting a little older and he hasn't been the same this year, but plus 160 for the touchdown. And then this is the Gilles Gallant special. He tipped me off to this. I'm always watching it. First Chiefs touchdown, plus 475. You can get this one with a quick slip. The Chiefs, for whatever reason, in the playoffs, just go to Travis Kelce right out of the gates. He scored the first Chiefs touchdown 5 of 7 playoff games the last 2 years. He's always the guy. Like, this is how we know that Saturday Football Love started, is Mahomes throwing it to Kelce, touchdown. Okay, good. The playoffs have begun. Divisional round is here. He's had the first touchdown in 3 of those games, if you just want the whole thing. I like this one better. First Chiefs touchdown in a win is plus 850. So I like the Chiefs to win anyway. I like the first Chiefs touchdown. That's a crazy number to me for what I think ends up becoming like, hopefully gets the first one, and then you just have a Chiefs money line with probably an early lead, plus 850. So I like that one. We mentioned the receiving touchdowns already just for the entire playoffs. The leader on that one, plus 950. He's 4 touchdowns away right now from passing Jerry Rice for the postseason record. You can bet that. 4 touchdowns or more at 20-1. And I don't know about the yards. His yards line is 51.5. Again, he's at 71 yards in 13 straight playoff games. That's an insulting line, but I'm not positive the yards will be there. He's averaging 98 yards a game the last 4 playoffs. I don't mind if you hit that one. There is a book offering right now most receiving yards by a tight end in the playoffs. Travis Kelce is plus 350. I don't care who anybody else is. We're probably getting 2, maybe 3 games from Travis Kelce, and I'm betting on the legacy. So give me the Kelce legacy escalator. Get the touchdown, get the first Chiefs touchdown, get the most receiving yards, tight ends, play the whole thing. Maybe he's just cooked at this point. Maybe he's going off making music with Taylor Swift, and that's the whole thing. He shows up every playoff game, and I'm willing to lose money betting that he keeps doing it.
The sneaky thing about that tight end market is obviously Noah Gray's there, but a lot of these other teams have 2 tight ends that tend to take away from each other, likely in Andrews, Knox, and Kincaid. So, maybe there is something there where if Kelce is Kelce, there might be a tiny bit of value. The stat that I had, which just kind of tells to what he's been, is he has 5+ receptions in 14 straight playoff games. That's
Wow.
absolutely insane. Longest streak by any player since the merger, but 5+ receptions. So, at 5 receptions and what'd you say, 57 yards? That's still a little difficult depending on the depth of the target. So I can definitely see him 1 or 2 touchdowns, a bunch of receptions, and maybe under that yardage.